Great pleasure to welcome Antony English, the co-founder at Freedom One, to What's Next. And welcome to you, Antony. It's great to have you with us, and congratulations. I see that you and your co-founder, Lizette Kriel, have just been awarded the Women in Entrepreneurship Award, which is fantastic, and we're going to touch on all of that. And you guys have actually won quite a few awards, so we're going to just get through those. But before we go into any of the awards, tell me about Freedom One, and what do you guys do exactly?
All right, so Freedom One is a brand that's been around since 2012, and we first started with a mission to convert vehicles to electric, should I say, and we did many projects in the game industry for game drives, and also boats for silent boat cruises. And it really morphed from there into this large energy storage company we have today, where we are producing lithium batteries for residential all the way through commercial and up to industrial. And it really came about in the days when we figured out the really great performance of the lithium iron phosphate technology from our experience with the vehicles, and our prediction that South Africa would become more and more reliant on alternative sources of energy. And as we've seen today, our prediction was more than correct. So we've been scaling up all these years to meet the demand. So our lithium batteries essentially go into renewable energy projects. So mostly solar, residential solar with battery storage, commercial solar with battery storage, and right through to industrial factories, etc.
That's fantastic. Listen, you're talking my language. It's something I'm very passionate about. Very passionate about electric vehicles, and the lithium-ion battery technology is, for me, so intriguing. And in many ways, it's misunderstood, right? The difference between, your normal batteries that you have in a traditional inverter, should we call it, or a traditional UPS, is very different to lithium ion. And there's a price difference to that, which, once you start using lithium ion, you will appreciate why you're spending the extra money on lithium ion. And as we're talking right now, there's load shedding going on, and this particular interview is being powered by lithium ion batteries. So it's, I don't know if you organized the load shedding to coincide with our chat, but this is what's happening right now from an energy point of view. And I alluded to the fact that you guys have won a few awards, and which is fantastic. And what does it mean for Freedom One to have won the SANEA Shapeshifter and Women Entrepreneurship Awards and be recognized as a leader in the renewable industry?
Oh, absolutely. It's so important to us. We were really honored by the nominations from SANEA. And then, in fact, yesterday we went to the award ceremony, and we lo and behold, we won 2 awards. And first of all, yeah, I mean, it was the premium award for the Shapeshifter of the year, essentially, and also Lizette won for the entrepreneurship by women in the renewable energy space. And well, she certainly deserved that. It's 10 years in the making for her. She's done a lot of hard work over the years building Freedom One's brand and educating the market through various channels. And well, it culminates in Freedom One's award as a shapeshifter, which is so important to us because it means that we're being recognized for the work we're doing in contributing to solving the energy crisis here in South Africa through really mobilizing the industry over the last 10 years and through our products and technology.
Oh, well, listen, congratulations. And you were talking about this earlier, and Antony, and your company is 10 years old. And I imagine that 10 years ago, when you started talking about lithium-ion batteries and renewable energy, it was a totally different conversation to what it is today, right? Talk to me about the challenges and highlights through this journey, and what are your goals for the next 10 years?
Okay, absolutely. So the technology was very expensive in the early 2000s, which is when I first started monitoring it. And in those days, it was really only viable for electric vehicles where the premium cost could be, well, let's say, accommodated. But as time went on, the prices came down, and our job became a lot easier. Initially, it was really early adopters that adopted the lithium technology. They saw the longer term. It's more expensive capital-wise, as you indicated earlier, compared to lead-acid batteries. But in the longer term, the cost is substantially less. And the lithium prices or the cost of batteries came down significantly around 2017 and 2018. And by that stage, the market was very much on the lithium boat, and in terms of the long-term life and overall long-term cost of ownership, and of course the performance of the lithium batteries. The efficiencies are very high, the charge rates are very high. So then lithium became mainstream in 2018. Essentially, and lead-acid sort of fell away in most cases, became obsolete.
Yeah. But I mean, lithium's a fascinating technology, and I've been learning a lot about it over the years. But it's also quite a dangerous, technology as well. From the heating point of view, and you often hear these stories. But when it's in a safe environment, because you find lithium-ion batteries in all electric vehicles today. I imagine producing it here in South Africa, that's quite extraordinary. How do you guys get about that? And tell us a little bit about your factory and your production here.
Oh, yes, okay. So for Freedom One, it's always been important to maximize the local content, because as much of a mission it is for us to get the world onto renewable energy, it's also a big mission for us to help support the South African economy. And right from the early days, we decided that we wanted to produce locally so that we could create jobs and provide skills upliftment. And our factory is in Honeydew on the West Rand, and we occupy in fact, a new building now is added, so we occupy from January 15,000 square meters. And we produce at the moment up to 50 megawatt hours of batteries per month.
Wow.
And we have 3 production lines. Yeah, 3 production lines and 330 employees. And the main employee base is about assembling the batteries. So we actually import the lithium cells, the lithium iron phosphate cells, and they come from a high quality manufacturer in China. But then everything else is done here. We manufacture the casings, the cable harnesses, the bus bars, the modules that the lithium cells go into, and that's all done in-house. So we are maximizing the local content as much as possible, and it also gives us a little bit more versatility in supplying the local market with products that we design, that we can design quickly and make changes to as the market demands. You mentioned the safety aspects, so I just wanted to touch on that. So the LifePO4 is a very safe lithium technology to start with, but of course it's very important that the structural integrity of the battery is at the required level in terms of the cells are retained correctly. There's no risk of external damage. The bus bars are adequately fastened and sized. But at the end of the day, the management of the battery is what's key, and that comes from the battery management system. And Freedom One uses one of the most advanced battery management systems in the world, which we have made in the USA by our BMS partner.
Okay, so I mean, absolute safety when it comes to using these batteries, which is fantastic, and of course it is the technology that's been used the most when it comes to renewable energy and storing energy globally. It's all lithium ion, and it's great that you've got this production here happening in South Africa. Now, we touched on this earlier. You alluded to the pricing, etc. And consumers often say that, going the green route is expensive, and it is, but when you look at it from a long-term point of view, it really pays itself off. Now, is there a concerted effort within the industry to make green energy more accessible, and what role are you guys playing in this? And I use this example from people, and I say, look, they say, let's say, for example, a solar system costs 100,000 Rand, right? And I say, if you put that money in the bank, the interest that you get versus the energy savings that you get, you can't compare the two. I mean, that's the example I use, but I'm sure you've got better examples to use. But what is the industry doing to really discuss and reassure people and get consumers on the right routing about energy and the fact that it is expensive, but it isn't expensive, if that makes sense?
Yes, okay, it does, because the capital cost to install a renewable system with storage can be a little daunting, because, well, let's face it, the batteries are fairly expensive. There's labor components, there's the solar panels, but over the long term, you're saving a hand over fist. In fact, in many instances now, if you take a loan from the bank, let's say you extend your mortgage, or take a personal loan from the bank, the money you're paying back to the bank every month is actually less than what you would have been paying to your utility or to Eskom, to your municipality. So as long as you have access to funding, and that's what's key here, is the accessibility to funding solutions for renewable energy. And that has come a long way. Really, it has. When we first started, no one was interested in funding solar projects, let alone with batteries. Now, the banks are all on board, and the amount of money available from offshore as well, at lower cost, is increasing, mostly for commercial installations. So there's still a little bit of room to improve the accessibility to funding and the fundability, say, of residential projects. But there are certain partners of ours out there that do lease-to-own models. So you're essentially leasing the product and over a certain time frame, and then by the end of that time frame, you end up owning it. And that makes the initial capital, it makes it much more accessible to the broader market.
No, you're 100% right, and I looked at quite a few of those funding models, and they certainly are quite appealing when you, especially the lease-to-own part, because of the longevity of the lithium-ion technology. I mean, that speaks volumes about how long you can use the technology for, versus the traditional batteries that we spoke about earlier, which probably have a lifespan of 3 to 4 years, or maximum 5 years, I would imagine. But lithium-ion is over double that. So maybe you can shed some light on the lasting. How long do they last for?
Yes, okay, absolutely. So lead-acid batteries, you do get different qualities of them as well, but typically you're looking at 2 to 4 years for the lifespan of these lead-acid batteries, especially if they're working hard in a load-shedding environment. And that compares to lithium batteries, which typically last about 13 to 15 years. So you've got this product which suddenly now becomes bankable. That's the sort of buzzword. Because the product lasts longer than the term of the loan, and that's key. I mean, a bank doesn't want to be lending money for the installation of a system that would need replacement before the loan is paid up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's true. So Freedom One has distributed 203 megawatt hours of power since March this year, which is quite an achievement. Are you meeting your own targets and expectations? So
I'm very happy to say that of late we've had a lot of funding support. It's a very capital intensive business, and this funding support of late has really enabled us to to jumpstart the trajectory to another level. Over the years, it has always been a challenge to keep up with the demand. And at certain times, we've had long lead times on our batteries as a result of spikes in demand. But we have met our own, in fact, we've exceeded our own expectations this year with phenomenal growth in our production capability. And it's actually even got to the point now where we are able to keep stock, which is fantastic for our customers because they don't have to plan weeks in advance to ensure their stock pipeline like they've had to in the past. We've actually got stock in our warehouse that we can dispatch on order for most models now, let's say for the small and medium-sized battery systems.
Right. Okay, well, that's great news. When we look at the lithium ion and you look at renewable energy and you look at the industries that can use this technology, which industries have you identified as ideal for the use of renewable energy and why? And I say ideal because it sometimes doesn't work. If you got, machinery that draws high amounts of energy, it's difficult to use renewable in that regard, but you can use it in other parts of your business. So tell us about what you've identified. What have you seen from an industry point of view?
Yes, now this is a very, very good question you ask. There are certain industries that favor renewable adoption more than others. Now, the most obvious one is industries that have high daytime loads and relatively small nighttime loads. And let's, most industrial, or let's say commercial systems would fit that bill. And that's because the cost of solar energy is quite cheap, really. I mean, you could amortize it out over the life of the solar panels to more or less 80 cents a kilowatt hour. And if you're generating solar and using it during the daytime, then that's really cheap energy. It's fractions of the cost of the grid. But if you need to store it and then use it out of the battery, so then the price jumps up by virtue of the cost of the battery. So you would like in the optimal situation to have a relatively small battery that can get you through night, and then a big solar array to run your big loads during the day. Now, an example of this is the agricultural industry that uses lots of power for irrigation. We have several really big projects that are running commercial irrigation systems. I don't know if you're familiar with the pivot, which is a circular irrigation pipe that moves around and around in a circle and irrigates the crops.
Yes.
They pump the water out a local river or dam, and they can focus on irrigating mostly during the day. They like to start at about 6 in the morning, and they can stop at about 6 in the evening. And you have a battery that supports the irrigation system in the mornings and afternoons and evenings, and also supports the whole system to ensure a stable supply if there's a bit of cloud that comes over. And then most of the hard work is done by the solar. So this is really, really compelling because it fits well into that example I mentioned earlier, where your cost of your loan to buy the system is actually less on a monthly basis than the cost of the energy you were paying to Eskom. And as a bonus, you've got stable supply.
Yes.
You're not held to ransom by infrastructure problems or load shedding. There's a really good case to be made for schools and universities and office blocks and even shopping malls, because most of the loads are in the daytime. We of late have been doing really big systems for shopping malls that can sustain the shopping mall during load shedding, and it also adds a massive advantage in that it keeps their solar arrays running during load shedding, which otherwise would have to shut down, by the way. There's
Yes.
lots of commercial buildings out there with sort of 1 or 2 or 3 megawatts of solar on the roof, and the moment the grid is switched off, their whole investment switches off as well.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more in demand with the regularity of stage 3 and stage 4 load shedding to keep these solar panels doing what they need to do, and that's to generate power. And our systems allow that to happen, because our system will take over the role of the grid and carry on as usual, as if nothing happened, basically.
Yeah,
So
and
those are some really good.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, it's all about engineering, right? You got to like understand what your needs are, how you're going to use energy, and where you're using energy at different times of the day, and then you can engineer that around that to provide the consistency you talk about. You mentioned that 6 a.m. in the morning you start your water, so you know what your patterns are going to be, and I think that a lot of people sometimes don't often look at their usage and engineer the alternative energies around that. Now, I did see you've got a new product called the E-Tower, which is your latest product offering. What is the E-Tower, and what are the mechanics behind it?
Okay, so there was a lot of thought put behind the E-Tower. We launched it late last year, and it's been phenomenally successful. It was specifically designed to improve the accessibility on the lower end of the residential solar backup and renewable plant space, because you can buy just the one battery to start with, and then stack it up. And stacking it up is so easy because it comes with all the accessories needed to stack them up into a tower, up to 6 high, and that's 30 kilowatt hours. And the versatility of being able to add on as you can afford it has been very popular, and we have a very solid stock holding of this product now, which means it's just flying off the shelves, and we're supporting our distributors with short lead times, and the residents are really happy with the performance of the E-Tower and the versatility of it. I meant to mention, sorry, the E-Tower is a 5 kilowatt hour module. So if you stack it up 6 high, you get.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to ask you. What's great about this is that it's scalable, right? So you can start at some point, and then you can build up to what you mentioned, 30 kilowatt hours, I think you said.
Yes, that's right. So there's a few important decisions to make when designing a solar solution on a budget, and because the battery is the most expensive component, it makes sense to put up the panels you think you'll need long term, and put in the battery inverter size you think you're going to need long term, and then put in, say, 1 or 2 E-Towers. And then a month or two down the line, when you've monitored your consumption and would like more storage at night, then you add another 2 or 3 onto the tower.
Okay, that makes sense. When you look at what the other product offerings you guys have got, what are the other products that are in demand right now, and what your customers and what your consumers are using, and why are those products in particular in demand?
Well, I'm very glad you asked that question, because the E-Tower really fits in at the smaller residential solution. We've got an even smaller battery offering, which is our 12-volt lithium batteries, which really, in terms of a load shedding support in a residential environment, they're good for backing up your Wi-Fi and your laptop, so you can continue to work during load shedding, and a few lights as well. But of course, they're also very popular in the leisure industry. So for caravans, 4x4s, that typical type of application. We have one model that's very popular for alarm backup batteries, because typically our solution will last sort of 15 years in an alarm backup, whereas the lead acid battery is being replaced every 2 or 3.
Yes.
And and then on sort of looking above the E-Tower a little bit, we've got our home range we call the Freedom Light range, and that's lithium to energy. It's an acronym, and we have a 10, a 15, and a 20, and a 30 kilowatt hour model in that space. And then we go into the business range, which has got 40, 60, and 80 kilowatt hour models. And then we have the commercial range, which starts at 100 kilowatt hours, and it's got various model sizes all the way up to 700 kilowatt hours. And what's quite unique about what Freedom One does is because we have the flexibility in our production lines, we're able to produce multiple different models which most suit the application.
Anthony, my final question is, your growth has been quite extraordinary. You know, you look 18 months ago that you guys had a staff complement of 70. You've now reached 310 employees, which is quite a jump in 18 months. And you also mentioned earlier at the beginning how you guys have expanded and, you know, you've grown to bigger premises, which is fantastic to hear. How on earth have you been able to achieve this in a climate where there's massive unemployment, job shedding is a reality for most, and, you know, there's no hiding the fact that the economy is under severe strain? How have you managed to grow in this time period?
So yes, it is phenomenal, really. If you look at the general market or state of the economy, but it's all come down to Freedom One having a first mover advantage. We have a strong brand. We have really solid technology and a really mature value chain all the way through, and it means that our products are considered to be the premium on the market, and they are very much in demand. And this has also been spurred on, of course, by load shedding over the years, and a lot of marketing from Freedom One to educate, you know, our potential market base about the advantages of our products, and in general of going green. You know, the advantages of renewable energy. And this has really just kept our growth rate up at phenomenal rates, essentially doubling each year. And along with that comes the need for employees. And you know, because we produce here, so every time we double our production, or let's say our sales, we have to double our production, which means we double our employees. And that's how we've been able to achieve it. And I must say, we were so glad we made that early decision to support the South African economy with local manufacturing, because we've just got such a wonderful team here at Freedom One, and we've had so much opportunity to uplift and skill people. You know, the industry is quite new, so just about everyone that comes into Freedom One needs training to perform their role, and therefore they're immediately being uplifted to the next level.
Oh, that's a great success story, and great to hear you guys are growing in this market, and the contributions you're making to renewable energy, because we know at the moment with what's happening around the world, with the COP summit that's on, we know that we're in deep trouble. We know that we've got to find alternative energy sources, and of course we know the challenges that we face with energy in this country, and we know that we have got sun and plentiful sun coming in, so let's make the best use of it. Antony English, the co-founder at Freedom One, thank you for joining us on What's Next.
Thank you, Aki.